Hey everyone, alright, so it's time to talk about Adam Wingard's Death Note. Yes, this is something we've been waiting a long time for. I certainly have. Just got done watching it. Um, I appreciate, a lot of people have been very divided over this thing. People hating on it, people trying to stay positive. It's been really interesting to see the reaction that this has got, even before it came out. But I've been trying to stay positive, remained optimistic. I know a lot of people weren't happy about some of the casting choices. I really like Margaret Qualley, so I was happy about her as Mia Sutton, who is essentially Misa Misa. Of course, Willem Dafoe, I think, was the one that everyone was happy with as to do the voice of Ryuk. I was really happy about Shea Wiggum being cast as Light's dad. That was probably the one I was like the most excited about. I really like Shea Wiggum. Um, and of course, Nat Wolff I didn't really know, so I was remaining neutral. And same with Keith Stanfield. Um, but yeah, going into this, I was just keeping an open mind. I know Adam Wingard is he very much likes to do his own thing, so I wasn't expecting it to be particularly faithful, and that's a good thing, because basically what this movie is, it takes the bare bones of Death Note, and then just Ad, Adam Wingard just totally does his own thing with it. He basically remixes it. Um, but do you know what? Honestly, what follows is I really liked it. I was really entertained by this. One thing I will say is this film is in terms of running time, it's at the 100-minute mark. So this is very, very condensed. Things move very fast in this. Um, but in terms of there's still, it's probably one of those where you'd still be able to follow it if you hadn't seen the original anime. But it probably helps if you have seen it because you can kind of like fill in some of the blanks. Um, but like I say, I think it's one of those where you can still see, you could still go in and enjoy it even if you were totally unfamiliar with it. A bit like The Dark Tower. That was a 95-minute movie, and from what I'd heard, it seemed as though this was a similar sort of thing. Something that had been heavily condensed. It has such a vast source material, so much material there, but they've had to condense it into a 95-minute film. I'm not familiar with the Dark Tower books, but I went into that movie and I was able to enjoy it just fine. So I think you'd get a similar thing with this movie. Um, but yeah, I think that's going to be the key to enjoying this. If you just leave your expectations at the door, go into it and just kind of like put us, expect it to be different. Like, because that's it, they just take the bare bones of it and run with it. And a lot of what they do, it is very different, but I really dug it. I was really able to get away with it. I appreciate some fans will hate it. Yeah, I won't sugarcoat it. Some fans will hate this, and do you know what? In all honesty, I think Adam Wingard fully appreciated that and realised it when he was going ahead with this. I think he fully appreciated that it was going to divide fans. Um, but hey, if as in his position, he's got to do his own thing. I mean, if he wasn't going to do his own thing, what would be the point of doing this? And of course, he's been working on this for a long time because, from what I can gather, they've been trying to get a Death Note, uh, like an English language Death Note remake off the ground for quite some time. You know, Shane Black was attached at one point and he left the project, and then Adam Wingard came on and stuck with it through Warner Brothers selling it to Netflix. You know, that was how. Well, I think it was thanks to Adam Wingard's dedication and commitment and enthusiasm about the project that it didn't just get dropped entirely. You know, Warner Brothers made the decision to sell it, and then Netflix picked it up and went from there. But honestly, this is really fun. There's some really, really cool, like some of the deviations from the source material are legitimately cool. Um, of course, you can tell a lot of time and effort's been put into this, like the design of the Death Note and the you can tell a lot of time and effort's been spent on getting the look for the Death Note just right. It has that aged feel to it. It has that otherworldly feel to it. Another nice little addition that they had was it had names in it from previous owners. So previous people who used the Death Note, their work was still there to be seen, which was a nice little touch, I thought. Um, the stuff with Ryuk, Willem Dafoe does a fantastic job with the vocal performance. In terms of how Ryuk actually looks, he looks great, but one of the smart decisions in this was to keep him in the shadows, which was very, I think, was a very very good was a very very good move. One thing I really liked about what Adam Wingard did with this was the stuff with Ryuk. They really amped up the horror feel for it. You know, like you could, like the the Ryuk in the original source material, of course, they start out with something of a horror vibe, but then that slowly fades away and he becomes very, almost like a running gag in a lot of ways. Whereas this, no, they really keep the horror levels up, and they bring him across as very dark in this. You know, probably it's probably the darkest interpretation of Ryuk we've seen, and I think that's one of the shining points about this movie. Like I say, love Shea Wiggum as Light's dad. He was in it a lot more than I thought he was gonna be, and I was very very pleased with that. Really like Shea Wiggum in this. Um, Keith Stanfield, man, he killed it. Of course, he took he takes like the key elements of L, like he's faithful to a point. He captures a lot of the essence of L, but then of course he really does add his own spin to it, which was the smart way to go, I think. But he really does a great job of L in this, you know, making it his own. Because of course the definitive L, I think, is Kenichi Matsuyama from the two-part Japanese live action from 2006 going into 2007. He's the definitive L for me. So my view in this was going into it was saying L's been done definitively now. So for me, Keith Stanfield can do whatever the hell he wants. So Keith Stanfield, and of course Adam Wingard deserves credit for this as well. They did a really great job of being true to the character to a point, but then being able to do their own spin on it. So, but again, I can fully appreciate, as I'm sure Keith Stanfield does and Adam Wingard does, that some fans just will have absolutely none of it. Um, as for Nat Wolf was serviceable. I will say I don't think he was the best choice for the role. They change Light up a bit in this, in the sense that he's not as much of an in terms of like his intelligence and his he's not cerebral. Cerebral, I think is the word I'm looking for. He's not as cerebral as Light from the original source material. He's a very different kind of Light. And in a lot of ways, Mia Sutton, Misa, whichever you want to go with, Margaret Qualley's character, she actually has they've taken a lot of the elements of Light from the source material and injected it into her character, which I thought was an interesting spin. But hey, I thought it worked. Um, yeah, the one. I mean, I'm not saying the original Death Note anime was devoid of action, but they did amp up the action vibe in a lot of ways in this, which I thought was a welcome addition. Because the anime captured, the intellectual battles very, very well. And that's what it was all about in the anime. How do you? It's basically like an ongoing chess match in the anime, whereas they went in a kind of a different direction with this, which I thought was smart, really, because doing like an intellectual battle, it's a fine line. It can be difficult to do with and keep things interesting. Whereas this, I think, was the way to go for this. Yeah, so I really like that they incorporated some more action into this, and it's legit. You know what? One thing I will say about this movie, it's legitimately fun. It is, it is. Um, but yeah, I will say that I think Nat Wolff, while he was certainly trying his best, he was weak in quite a lot of parts. I think they could have got a better light. Really liked what Margaret Qualley did. So I think overall, maybe Nat Wolff was the weak link in this. Maybe. As for Watari, um, he was he was just in the background in a lot of this. We I think again because they had to condense things like nobody's business. I think the cut of like Watari's part, it was very cut down. So maybe he didn't get the chance to shine like he does in a lot of the anime, because of course he does everything for L in the anime, whereas we don't really see